for Mr. Lhota.
We have two questions on the income gap, one for Mr. Lhota, one for Mr. de Blasio. Starting with Mr. Lhota, you have criticized Mr. de Blasio's Tale of Two Cities claim, yet the widening income divide is real. The latest census figures show the average household income of the bottom fifth is just under $9,000, which is compared to more than $200,000 for the upper fifth. How would you, if elected, narrow that gap?
Jennifer, thank you for that question. Income inequality is an extreme problem that needs to be dealt with in the city of New York. Where I disagree with my opponent is that he talks about a tale of two cities, where you basically divide the city into class warfare, where it's rich versus poor, black versus white, old versus young. What we need to do is have a tale of one city where we all work together. Here's what we need to deal with income inequality. We have to strengthen the social safety net for those who need it, who are in a sense of poverty right now. But what we absolutely need to do is to expand our economy, create jobs, because I want the unemployed to be employed. I want the underemployed to have much better paying jobs. In fact, I want them on a career path. We need to do this in combination with making sure that our education system is reformed so that we can continue to make sure that the children of this city will be able to get the jobs that are created because of my economic development policies.
Okay, thank you. Mr. de Blasio, would you like to respond? Also, we have a question for you on this.
Well, can I respond to this first? Because you get a lot in there. Look, first of all, the notion that admitting the reality we're facing in this city, admitting the fact that 46% of New Yorkers are at or near the poverty level, that's a city government study that says that our middle class is starting to disappear. Admitting that is part of addressing the problem, admitting it and then solving the problem by being open and honest about it. It's not class warfare, as Bill Clinton said. It's not class warfare, it's mathematics to acknowledge these problems and challenges in our society so we actually can move forward with creating one New York. You know, the bottom line here is that Mr. Lhota believes in a trickle-down economics approach. He believes in tax cuts for corporations and the wealthy, and he thinks eventually it'll reach the rest of us. But the income gap in this city has grown, you know, from that study that said it was 46% at or near the poverty level. Since then, a few months ago, we had a study a few weeks ago that said it even got worse.
Thank you,
and the bottom line is we have to address this forcefully.
Jen?
Mr. de Blasio, this question's for you. So Mayor Bloomberg suggested it would be a godsend if more billionaires moved to New York City. Do you agree with that? And if you were mayor, how would you attract those billionaires and keep them here in New York?
I guess when he said that, Mayor Bloomberg was feeling lonely and he wanted more billionaires to hang out with. But look, we need every kind of person to make our city run. And part of what I've said, I have called for a tax on the wealthiest New Yorkers to fix our schools. And then I've said to people, look, this is in everyone's interest. I went before the Association for a Better New York, the main business civic group, not once but twice over the last year to say, we need to tax the wealthy so we can fix our schools for the future of our city, for the future of all. So if billionaires want to come here, God bless them. But I'm focused on everyday New Yorkers in the outer boroughs and all over the city who need government to step up and provide opportunity for them.
Thank you, Mr. Lhota.
Bill, if I may ask Mr. de Blasio a question about that proposal of pre-K for everybody. Many critics believe that that will be dead on arrival in Albany because they don't think if they want to approve a $500,000 plus tax on the wealthy. What will be your plan B then to try to get universal pre-K?
You know, a lot of people have said to me my idea of having full-day pre-K for every child, after-school programs for every middle school child, they say it's a big idea, it's a bold idea, and I say New York has always been known for big, bold ideas and progressive ideas. This is the shape of things to come. If we're not giving full-day pre-K to our kids, we're not preparing them for what they need educationally in the future, for the future job reality they're going to face in the economy of today. We'll get it passed in Albany because we're going to build tremendous public support for it. And we're going to say that it's fair for the wealthy to pay a little more so we can all do better in the future. And I think the people of this city and the people of the state believe in that approach.
Thank you. Mr. Lhota, you have 45 seconds to respond to that.
I'd like to have 2 seconds because there were two different questions. I have no idea what Mike Bloomberg was talking about. I think his words were quite insensitive when he started talking about bringing more billionaires to New York. I understand the theory behind it, but the reality is, as the mayor of the city of New York, we need to be a lot more sensitive about how we talk about the people in the city of New York. As far as raising taxes, look, Bill de Blasio is a career politician, and every career politician that ever says they're only going to raise taxes on the wealthy ends up also raising taxes on the middle class. It's never happened anywhere in this country where they've just raised taxes on the wealthy. Believe me, and believe me when I say this, he will not stop. During his entire career, As a member of City Council, he voted twice to increase the property taxes. There wasn't a fee or a fine that he didn't vote for. He has a record of continually going back and taking money away from the middle class. It's not right, and he's right. We are on the verge of losing the middle class because of the actions that he has taken.
I want to talk about money for 1 second.
Bill, I have to respond to that, please. Just 1 second.
15 seconds, Mr.
Please. Mr. Lhota's plan is to give tax breaks to the wealthy, tax breaks to the corporations, and again, that is classic Republican trickle-down economics, and that is not going to help us. I've talked about one tax and one tax only on people who make $500,000 or more for the next 5 years so we can fix our schools. That is a fair tax and something we need.
Thank you. Let me talk about money for a second, because the U.S. is possibly going to default on its debts this Thursday. The market down today for the first time in 4 days. The futures market tonight is way down, just over the worry that there might not be a deal. If you were mayor with this bully pulpit and with Wall Street so important to New York City's economy, what would you be doing right now? Mr. Lhota, I'll start with you. 30 seconds.
I'd be using the bully pulpit to explain to the people in Washington they have no idea the damage that they are doing to the creditworthiness of this country. Tonight, one of the rating agencies said they're going to downgrade the United States of America from the AAA that it's had for many, many years. The reality is what's going on in Washington is despicable. They were sent there to govern. They're doing anything but govern, and it is absolutely wrong. They got to get their act together. They've got to stop. And I hope the people who they represent in their districts understand that they are not doing their job.
Mr. de Blasio.
Well, I would, as mayor of New York City, I'd get mayors and governors around the country together, go to Washington, fight to bring sanity to end this Tea Party madness, work with the financial community that knows how dangerous this crisis is. But let's be clear, the same Tea Party that Joe Lhota reached out to for the support in Staten Island, these are the same folks who are causing this problem. The same Tea Party, the same extremist Republicans who say, let's delay Obamacare or get rid of Obamacare. Well, Mr. Lhota agrees with them that we should delay Obamacare. He is enabling the same worldview that has put us in this crisis.
I didn't go to the Tea Party for support at all. They invited me to come to speak, and I went to speak, as I will in any community in any part of the city of New York. So the idea that I went there for their support is absolutely wrong. But what I will tell you is that regarding the situation regarding Obamacare, I think it's very important to talk about this. What I basically said is that we need to delay it for 1 year. And the reason why we need to delay it for 1 year is the government doesn't have their act together. Their computer systems aren't working. What I've learned from a management point of view is that you're going to implement a program, make sure it works, make sure people can sign up.
Thank you, Mr.
It's not there right now.
This is so important.
1 year delay question?
Yeah, of course we can't delay Obamacare. 600,000 New Yorkers are uninsured. They need coverage. It will help to save costs for all of us to get the maximum number of people covered. We have to move ahead. And the idea that the Tea Party is holding up Obamacare, holding up the debt situation as a result, Mr. Lhota has really got to be a little more honest with us. If you go to the Tea Party to meet with them, it's not honest to say you didn't want their support.
We're going to move ahead, gentlemen. I want to move ahead to the next question because we have a lot to get through. It's very important for the voters to make up their minds. Mary Ellen, you have the next question for Mr. de Blasio.
Mr. de Blasio, this has to do with the economy. Your campaign even estimates that nearly 16% of all New Yorkers are without a job or simply working part-time. And as you know, the reality is even tougher for immigrants, for Hispanics, for blacks, for minorities. So what will be your plan to generate new jobs, but within the 2 years of your office, and well-paid jobs, too?
And there's two pieces to that, creating the maximum number of jobs and making sure that they're as best paid possible and with benefits. So first of all, the plans I've put forward, the 200,000 units of affordable housing, there's going to be a huge amount of job creation in that plan, both in construction and in maintenance of those buildings. The plan I've put forward to end the arbitrary fines and harassment of small business and replace it with a revolving loan fund so small business can grow and create jobs at the grassroots in every neighborhood and every borough. These would really change the reality for New Yorkers. But we also need the quality jobs, the decent benefits. That's why I believe in extending paid sick leave to hundreds of thousands more New Yorkers who don't have it now. I believe in living wage legislation that says when we subsidize a company, we're going to demand that they pay a decent wage to the workers that they employ. There's a lot we can do with city government to lift people up, to get more opportunity to them and make sure they have a chance in the middle class. But in the Bloomberg years, a lot of that's been off limits because of a Republican ideology that I fear Mr. Lhota shares.
Mr. Lhota?
But the 200,
it's inconsistent.
I'm sorry, if I may, the 200,000 units that you're proposing, that's going to take like 10 years, and those construction jobs might not come immediately. So what would be your plan to generate new jobs within the next 2 years of your office?
As I said, right away we would help small business, which is the #1 job creation engine. Right away we would help small business to create jobs. jobs, by ending the arbitrary enforcement that's taking so much money out of small businesses all over this city, they can't afford to create more jobs. These are where the best grassroots jobs are available for so many people, and will help small businesses get loans so they can create even more jobs. All of the pieces of my plan will spur economic activity, but we're also going to make sure they are decent paying jobs. You know what? We have a tourism industry in this city with a lot of minimum wage jobs. We got to get away from minimum wage jobs and get people jobs they can actually feed a family on.
Mr. Lhota, you have 1 minute to respond.
Sure. The rhetoric that's coming from my opponent is extraordinary, and all the great things that he's talking about. Two and a half weeks ago, he said that he would not have voted to keep Fresh Direct in the city of New York. Fresh Direct had one leg out the door. They were negotiating in New Jersey. They had a deal on the table. Governor Cuomo, Mayor Bloomberg, and the borough president in the Bronx, Ruben Diaz, came together to keep 2,000 jobs in the city of New York. You cannot talk about creating jobs if you're going to export jobs across the border. The reality is they also agreed to, when they moved to the Bronx, to increase the number of jobs by 1,000, one-third of which will be filled by people from the Bronx, the highest area of unemployment. Quite honestly, Bill, I don't understand how you can sit there and talk about what you're going to do when you were given a chance to actually save jobs in New York, and you said no, you wouldn't have done it.
Let me speak to this. You know, my opponent never met a corporate subsidy he didn't like. Here's $130 million in taxpayer subsidies going to Fresh Direct, and this is their biggest market. Let's be clear. They had a thriving business in New York. But my opponent thinks it's good to lavish them with more taxpayer dollars. He wants to give further tax breaks to corporations and the wealthy. That's not the way forward.
Quick response, 15 seconds.
It's not lavishing more taxpayer dollars. The fact of the matter is they were one step out the door. They were going to New Jersey, and we need to make sure that we keep the jobs in the city of New York. The people deserve to have good-paying jobs in this city, not sending them to New Jersey.
Thank you both very much. Let's go to our news studio where Sade has a question from our viewer. Sade?
Yeah, Mr. Lhota, a viewer points to one of your political ads where you claim that you will put more money back into the pockets of New Yorkers. But he questions this. Why should New Yorkers think the ad speaks the truth when MTA fares were raised astronomically under your watch? And not just fares, but tolls also went up during your tenure as MTA chairman. Can you explain, Mr. Lhota?
Sure. I'm glad you asked that question, and I'm glad the viewer asked that question. It's really important to understand what's happened to the MTA over the years. In 2009, Governor Patterson, Speaker Silver, and the majority leader at the time, Malcolm Smith, took hundreds of millions of dollars that were dedicated to the MTA for over 20 years. They took it away, and then they put in writing that there would be fare and toll increases every 2 years. And there was in 11 and in 13. And when you look at the books of the MTA, it's going on forever. Why? Because the state of New York keeps raiding MTA funds. There was a time when New York State was #1 in their subsidies to mass transit. Now they're dead last of all the states in this country that actually have mass transit. Here's what I did when I was at the MTA. I did everything I could to keep costs down. Our discretionary expenses in 2012 were less than they were in 2011. First time that's ever happened in the history of the MTA. I negotiated to make sure that the folks on Staten Island with their tolls only get to pay $6 going across that bridge. I actually believe we need to do everything. As mayor, I will fight to get more money for the MTA.
Thank you, Mr. Lhota.
I will fight to make sure that our citizens get to pay a fair share, not the greater share.
Mr. de Blasio, 45-second response.
Yeah, 2 points. First of all, you'll notice Mr. Lhota did not acknowledge that on his watch MTA fares went up, tolls went up. I think he should just own his history and acknowledge it. But look, the bottom line here is we also had the discussion of Fresh Direct a moment ago, and this says so much. Again, he believes in corporate giveaways. I believe that that money, that $130 million that went to Fresh Direct, you know what it could have done, for example, for the City University of New York? This is part of my plan. Let's get money back to CUNY, financial aid money so people can get to CUNY, who right now are excluded. More programming at CUNY so people can get the kind of training for jobs that exist right now. For example, the tech sector, film and TV, healthcare, booming sectors in New York City, but where too few New Yorkers have the skills for quality jobs. Why don't we use our economic development dollars to actually lift people up from the grassroots rather than more corporate giveaways?
Thank you, Mr. de Blasio. I have a quick question for Mr. Lhota. Today in a New York federal court, a suspected al-Qaeda terrorist, Abu Anas al-Libi, was arraigned in connection with the bombings of the American embassies in Kenya and Tanzania. Right. Do you think high-profile terror suspects like him should be tried here in Lower Manhattan?
You know, quite honestly, we have no choice in the matter because the federal government has decided that when terrorists overseas do anything and they come to this country, they must be arraigned in the Southern District of New York, and it's the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York is one who's in charge of it. Quite honestly, I think there are other parts of the United States where they can go. The crime wasn't committed here. The crime was committed overseas. You can have a trial anywhere in the United States to deal with it, but we have the wherewithal, when the men and women of the NYPD will continue to know what to do to make sure that we are kept safe.
Mr.